All right. Now, joining us on the show this week, lead systems designer Dan Trufin and Star Citizen live game director Todd Papy. How you doing, guys?
Well, doing good. Hello.
Thank you for joining us this week.
Oh, thanks for having us.
All right. Now, Todd, you've been on Reverse to First 4. You were just on like 2 weeks ago. We know who you are and what you do and whatnot. But Dan Trufin, this is your first time on Reverse to First. Why don't you take a couple minutes, tell everybody watching who you are and what you do for Star Citizen.
So I'm the lead system designer in Frankfurt. My main job is to ensure that basically all the direction that comes down from Todd, Chris, gets distilled and given to the system designers, and then they provide a design that actually makes sense, is fun to play, and still respects the direction that comes from above. And then making sure that design gets approved, that gets resources, and kind of see the system from early paperwork all the way to final implementation and making it to live and making sure it's up to the quality standards.
All right. And what are some of the gameplay systems that you've worked on for Star Citizen in your time here? I know you were involved with the stamina and the actor status system, but what else have you worked on for Star Citizen so people know what your area of expertise is and stuff?
So there's a lot of things that I dug my my heels into, from everything from, so it's the actor status system, but all the supporting systems for that, like the room system and how oxygen travels from one room to another. It's the initial designs for the FPS suit, which hopefully we get to see fairly soon.
We'll get that in soon.
Yeah. So a lot of AI work, a lot of the non-combat ones, but also overseeing the combat part of things.
Usables.
A lot of the usable stuff. Whereas now we're digging big time into mining, so that's a lot of fun. It's cool to get to do mining. It's one of these core systems that will make the game feel much more alive than it is right now.
I know you couldn't even say mining without coming alive yourself. As somebody who uses their hands a lot, I appreciate that. And Todd, I said we didn't need an introduction for you, but every show is somebody's first show. Give us a quick rundown of what you do for Star Citizen.
Star Citizen live game director. So basically just making sure what goes into the game for these releases is up to the quality level that we feel it needs to be. And sitting down, working with Dan and the other designers, as well as the other team members, that are going through different sprints to release things, and making sure that it's hitting Chris, Aaron, Tony's direction, my direction, and away we go.
All right. So, of course, if this is your first Reverse to Verse, we do take questions live from two different sources. You can submit your questions either in Twitch chat, where we are broadcasting live now. Apologies if you're watching the replay on YouTube later. You can preface your question with the word "question" in capital letters surrounded by brackets. That's going to help. Our community managers, pull the questions out from all the other conversation. You can also submit questions up on Spectrum, which is our communication platform available on our own website, therobertsspaceindustries.com. In addition to the live chat, we also put up a thread earlier in the week collecting questions for people who couldn't be here live and allowing people to upvote with the questions that they wanted to see answered most. So we're going to start, as we usually do, with a question that's been voted on, from the Spectrum thread. This says, please explain how the gameplay for mining, repair, and salvage works in terms of minigames. All right, so one question for three gameplay systems. Maybe we turn this down to one. Maybe we just talk about mining since we know you're animated. What can you tell us about mining at this point, Dan? I mean, I know we're still early days.
So this is valid for all three of those systems. The main direction of the game, we don't want the player to just go to a wreck or a mining site and just push a button and things get done for him. We want him to have a challenge. The main thing for us, it needs to be challenging, it needs to be risky, especially for mining, which is a very lucrative opportunity. You can make a lot of money. There needs to be risk involved, and if you're not doing your job right, or two, some other people figure out where you're trying to mine and want to take whatever you mined as their own, that needs to become instantly. It drives that gameplay we want to achieve, because that's the risk reward factor drives it. Regarding mini games, this is something which we're trying hard to not do what other games do, which is they just plug and play an existing puzzle. They just go, oh, I know this. I don't know. Let's take the example of tic-tac-toe. They take tic-tac-toe and they plug it into the game and go like, yeah, that's the gameplay. No, this needs to make sense. It needs to make sense, as in when you're mining, you're actually doing some kind of thing that it's not just artificially inserted in there. So for mining, for example, we have this mining laser that injects energy into the rock. It basically tries to agitate the particles in there and extract only what you need out of it. There are risks involved. The more power you put into it, the higher the risk that it blows up, and then the higher the risk that it actually blows up catastrophically to the point where it can damage you and your ship. So this is kind of how this works. At the same point, and
let me specify, this is only for ore only right now. So, and then we'll have different ones for liquid and gas in the future.
Liquid, gas, asteroids, planetary mining. There's a lot of extraction type of gameplay that we want to add. There's this ranges from big chunks of ore to liquids to gathering organic samples from various botanical or animal sources. So there will be a lot of things where we can gather resources in the future.
Yeah, but I think you should expand upon like the tier 0, what we consider tier 0. And
so, our tier 0 that we're aiming to release fairly soon.
Moderately soon?
Moderately soon, yes. Is we're basically going to have, we're going to be working with a prospector, and we're going to have this laser tractor beam combination, which energizes the rock. We have various thresholds in there. If you're not energizing it enough, then you're not going to be able to pick up any content from the rock. Then if you're energizing further, the more power you put into it, the more resources you start getting into it. Then there's an optimal phase where this is where you want to keep your laser powered in the optimal phase. And the more you keep it here, the more efficient you'll be, the less slag you pick out of the rock, like debris, because you don't want debris in there. You want your containers to fill up with gold and all the good stuff. And then if you go over that, and you will go over that because there is instability based on the elements inside the rock, you'll have various spikes of energy that you're trying to put 100 megawatts into the rock, but suddenly it happens that the rock gives you ups by 200 megawatts, and that might spike over. So it's constantly fighting you, and you're trying to keep it in check so it doesn't go overboard. And then if it goes over optimal and into super dangerous zone, and you don't manage to recover from there, then yes, it will be catastrophic too.
One of the questions that came in from the live chat while you were talking is, are there risks in mining that like hitting pressurized gas pockets? Is it more than just adjusting the energy levels? Could there be dangerous elements in the?
This is something that we're looking for the next year. We would like to have multiple things inside that rock, some of them beneficial, some of them not quite so beneficial, with disastrous consequences. So it might be that certain elements in the rock actually make it easier to mine, and then certain pockets of elements, if you manage to accidentally trigger them, then you will have fun time.
I don't know why, but I'm thinking about that movie Armageddon right now.
Pretty much.
It's
never. You got to play. You got to put the nuke in the right place.
Yeah. Yep. It's never a good time when you're thinking about Armageddon. All right, another question from the thread here. You covered the second part of that, which is, is there more than just simply pressing F to engage? Yes, certainly sounds like it. Certainly sounds like it. What? Just moving along from mining. Is there anything that we can talk about repair and salvage right now? Just to cover the other 2 points that were in the question.
Yeah. So basically, the first part of salvage and repair that we're going for would be, I think when we released the Crucible, we did a repair write up, which basically detailed kind of like the scraping of a hull and then cleaning it off and then repainting it and basically dealing with our UV2 damage shaders. So salvage would be kind of the inverse of that. So with repair, you want the ship covered, and with salvage, you want to scrape off everything before you start going into the mulching phase or breaking the ship apart. And so with salvage, I think that there's basically 5 different phases to it. There would be the hull phase, or the stripping of it. Then there's the mulching of the ship. There's item extraction. There's data extraction, and then there's possible siphoning. So whether that be air or gas. So like quantum fuel or something like that. But right now, like with mining, we're going to focus on ore. From salvaging, we will be focusing on the hull stripping first, and then from there, start working through those other facets of gameplay.
Yeah, I think this is something worth mentioning. Most of these things now are reaching their tier 0 and they'll go live. And once they go live, there'll be so much to build upon that, because we're trying to keep all our systems open-ended, so there's more to come always. We don't want to do a minimal thing and then that's it. There's stuff there behind. It just takes time to get there.
Thank you for bringing that up. That's an important point that applies to almost every aspect of Star Citizen. That every time we do a patch and there's a new feature, that is the first iteration, the tier 0 of that. It's very rarely like, oh yeah, that's it, and that's how it's going to be, and it's never going to change, and it's never going to iterate from that. We are definitely building this game live out in front of everybody. So thank you for bringing that up. A follow-up on the mining thing. It says from the live chat. It says, speaking of different things to mine, will we have to swap basic mining tools if we want to extract liquids versus ore versus gas? Are there different? Are we thinking different lasers, different tools, different attachments, kind of thing?
Yes, I definitely don't want to have a tool that does it all. Or there might be a tool that does it all, but at very low efficiency. Okay. So you will have a tool that, all of our components, all of our items have subcomponents. So you'll be able to configure that laser to whatever you want to achieve. But there might be that, for example, switching from ore to liquid, that you'll need a completely different tool. Okay. So you have to come equipped for the job at hand. You have to know what the job is or search for a specific item that you're equipped to mine. Gotcha.
All right, and another follow-up to that. You said we're working on the prospector. That'll be our first test bed. Going further than that, can only mining ships mine, or will we be able to outfit other ships with mining lasers, mining equipment, maybe not as efficiently as the prospector, but?
I think that's something that we need to have a conversation about, just because a lot of times our ships, besides kind of cargo, are pretty hard themed. We're looking at it from a prospector standpoint, an Orion standpoint, as well as a player standpoint. So, so if a player wants to go down and use a multi-tool or use a mining laser from an FPS standpoint, then those are things that we'll look at before introducing these to other ships.
I just want a mining M50, Todd. Is that so much to ask?
Well, just because you said that, I'll crush your dreams.
All right, that's going back to the Spectrum thread. Next most voted question: as a captain of a large ship like the Constellation or Reclaimer or Starfare, always with the options here, how will I control NPC pilots and tell them where to fly, where to land? This is a little bit about what you're working on right now, Dan, isn't it? The ability to hire NPCs, or
it's the ability to hire NPCs. Yes, does not necessarily have much to do with how you control them. The control is a separate interface, but I can speak a bit about this. We initially started looking into this when we realized the capabilities of the Idris and kind of figured out that you have a full crew that you need to control, and also you will be, let's call it, the main ship in a fleet rather than just a single ship dogfighting. So the Idris has this battle sphere, which you guys have seen. It's that we turned into an interface where joined together with MFDs, but still, think about it more in the sense of a strategy game. So where you can give orders and queue orders for certain ships or internal people. So you can actually, you can tell, Wing 5, attack this target, you protect that ship. So you give, it's basic orders. There's the AI behaviors that will do the heavy work under that. But the basic orders, we need to be able to give whoever is the captain of that ship, we need to give them the chance of commanding stuff in a fleet or commanding stuff inside their ship.
Okay. So
and sorry, just to interrupt, Jared. It should be one of those things like if you're saying target this person, it should be that if you have players in that turret, they're also seeing the same thing.
Yes, they will get. They might follow it or might not because they're players. They do what they want, but they do get here. This is your main target because the commander, the captain said so. And then you know at least what the fleet wants you to attack. I mean, the same interface we can also use for drones, for example. If you're a ship that has a lot of drones, we can use the same interface. You can use it. The difference between a drone and an NPC AI is that, let's say you hire an AI, and then you give him an order based on various skills and traits that he has. He might not take that order, or he might take it and do something completely crazy. So that will be an interesting thing to play with once we add that part of the AI behavior. So you will have to have your dude. You'll have to know which dude will react badly to a certain situation. If you send a guy to kill himself to save the fleet, you have to make sure that guy actually will follow the order.
Gotcha.
Drones will not. The drones will just do whatever you tell them to. They have no personality, but AI will have.
It'll be an interesting day when we have to separate. Did that AI not do what you told it to do because it was a bug, or did that AI not do what you told it to do because because its personality matrix was like, no, I'm not dying for this.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, that's interesting.
But this is where we have logs and we can actually go through them and go like, yep.
All right, now I'm not going to.
Also, there will be a lot of feedback. We do not want AI to be doing things that it's just doing things and not telling you why. If he's canceling an order that you gave him, he will tell you to go. Yeah. So he will not just quietly cancel that order. He will tell you why, and you will kind of take immediate action to rectify the problem.
All right. Now, I want to rewind you a little bit. You said you're working on the hiring of AIs. I'd like to go into that a little bit if you're willing. Where are we with that in the current development on hiring AIs?
It's still early in the works. So right now, what we're working a bit more on, and it's connected to this, it's all these AI skills and perks and how they affect the behavior. So when you want to hire an AI, it's very important to know who you're hiring, why you're hiring that person, and what skills he has, what traits he has. You might actually get a surprise where you hire someone and not everything will be visible from the beginning. We might find out that this guy is, I don't know, he's a UE hater, but you don't get that information as a trait. You might have to do a lot of missions, you might have to play with him a bit, and then you start discovering things. So the skills will always be visible. You will get skills visible. Those you will be able to train. You'll be able to go, okay, this is where he starts. This is how much it costs me to actually pay the dude. And this is where I can take him. He will have certain attributes that limit where he can go and what his potential is. But yes, you will have to train him and make sure he reaches a nice level. And once he reaches that level, you want to keep him alive because you don't want them to die.
Okay.
Because you've invested in them.
All right. The next question from our live chat is actually a follow-up to a conversation we had on Calling All Devs. I guess I figure since you're here, we talked on a couple weeks ago about medical gameplay and about how the more you die, the more your body will break down. It's like this. This person wants to know about how far do we plan to take the levels of gore? It's like, as our bodies break down, are we going to become zombies? I guess dragon arms. For medical gameplay to be fully immersive, a certain level of gore is necessary, this person posits.
Okay. No, I understand where he's coming from, and it's just, I think, first of all, this is a bit early to make a call on this, and I think Chris will be the ultimate person who makes a call on this.
Okay.
Would it be interesting to actually take a scalpel and start cutting human beings and seeing what's inside? I don't know. We'll have to see. It's an interesting question, but yeah, I think ultimately Chris will have to have his say in this.
Yeah. Now, still very early days. If you do want to see, if you want to see what information is available on medical gameplay, you should check out that Calling All Devs. I think it was 2 weeks ago or whatnot. The title says medical gameplay, I'm pretty sure. So not much, still early days, but a good conversation with Dan Trufin there. So check that out there. Here's a question, just an overall design question that's coming through the chat. Can we train our characters to sustain more G-force? This actually comes up quite a lot. People are curious whether there might be armors that will allow us to sustain more G-forces than normal, things to kit out ships to help us sustain more G-force. There's anything related to sustain more G-force.
We've talked about it from a flight suit standpoint, so that, let's say, an RSI flight suit might have better G-force or better, I guess, body compression versus other undersuits that are looser or those types of things. So it is definitely something that we've talked about just because, again, when we're thinking of these armors or these undersuits, that we want to very much tailor them and say, okay, you want to go down this line, here's a good thing for that. So let's say exploration, it might not be good for G-forces, but it'll be better for thermal weather or, so extreme hots, extreme colds, those types of things. So we want to more kind of hard theme these versus like the UE military ones that we have right now in Star Marine. Like those would be better in combat, versus like the normal flight suit or even the Explorer suit.
Gotcha. All right. Going back to the Spectrum thread and a follow-up to the AI conversation we've been having, what do you think about the possibility of hiring AI pilots to fly our ships while we were like one of the things that comes up quite often is the notion that we can fly, for people who own like 20 ships. I'll fly my ship, and can I hire an AI to fly this other ship that I own? And can I hire an AI to fly this other ship that I own? What do you think? Obviously, it's still very.
We haven't really talked about it. Okay. Yeah, we haven't really talked about that, just because, I would prefer that the players playing the game.
Fair enough.
not the computer.
I know for sure Chris would definitely prefer that.
So yeah, it's fair enough to think about, like, if you're online and you're doing that, and let's say you have an Idris and you've got other ships associated with that, like Gladiuses or other ships that you want flying around in your fleet. And you have AI pilots associated with that. As long as you're there and flying it, then I think that's something that we would, think about. But it would be something that would require more discussion, not only from a technical standpoint, but also from a design standpoint.
Yeah.
And also, besides that, you will be able actually to hire someone that already has a ship. Rather than, so you will hire an NPC for a certain duration. Let's say I need someone for today because I'm doing some heavy missions. He comes with this ship, he has these skills, and you know exactly what support you're getting. You giving their ships away, you giving your ships away for AI to fight. We're worried about this thing where people have a lot of ships and they can just, one man controls an entire fleet. This is something that would break the balance of the game. We need to not overpower people that much. But then, yes, it's exactly what Todd said. You have an Idris, you have Gladiuses as part of that Idris's flight group. They're on your ship, and you might have NPCs that you tell them, yeah, get to your ships, launch, because we're attacking someone in 3 seconds. And they will do that.
No, I absolutely understand all of that. I've actually heard similar sentiments here in this office from designers and from Chris himself. It's not that we're ready to rule it out at this point, but ultimately, if your choice is between having players in the game or having NPCs in the game, we're always going to choose, having players.
Well, and even with Chris, he said multiple times, like he wants roughly a 9-to-1 ratio, so nine AI to 1 player. So, right then and there, that kind of says, we've got a lot of AI in the game. It's not just going to be only players.
All right. Next question from the live chat is for Todd Papy. It says, this person wants to know what the badges you're wearing are. I think they're just emblems on there.
It's just a sweatshirt. I saw it. I think this is third Cavalry, and little did I know, but they're actually stationed in the Wiesbaden where I used to live.
Oh, nice. I thought it was like a soccer shirt. I'm
no,
sorry, a European football.
No, I got it in the States when I was there. So, but I liked it, and
nice.
It's cozy.
All right. So next question is from the live chat is a follow up to the mining question. Do you anticipate a difference between space mining versus planet side mining, as considering different needs, methods, or even types of vehicles? Have we given any consideration to differentiating those particular 2 types of mining?
Well, I guess it would depend on if we're talking about ore and stuff like that. I mean, right now we're going to start with planet side, and then from there take it to space. But obviously, moving around a rock, in space, then you're moving around in 3 dimensions versus on planet surface, you're dealing with either you're landing or you're moving, you're hovering and moving around it. And then Dan can.
It'll definitely be different. We want the experience to be different. How different? We do not want to make it completely a separate type of mining. The ideas will stay the same. You'll just have various things that you can do a lot easier when you're in space or on the ground, and some things that are harder depending on where you are. And then there's the different types of mining, of going under the surface and stuff like this versus on the surface. Each of them will have their unique flavor to it.
And I think I promised this to Marco. He doesn't want voxels.
Fair enough. All right. So next question from the Spectrum thread where folks were submitting and voting on. What is the exploration game mechanic going to look like? Now, obviously, exploration, we're still building out one system, one star system, and then as the scope of 2018, we're still building out the one star system. So we're probably very, very early days.
Well, I guess with exploring, we've talked about like short range scanning, and we've had very high level discussions about long range scanning and kind of what that means, and having I think I spoke a little bit about it on the reverse that I was on 2 weeks ago, where having different views, so whether it's thermal imaging or gamma or something along the EM spectrum, that you're I think Tony would equate it to you're basically opening like the old school pictures where you would have to stand there for 5 minutes as the light goes in. It's kind of a similar idea where you're picking out anomalies, and then from there you would go in and expand on that. But there's a lot of systems that we need to be thinking about, whether that just be background noise, in the overall system, and then even thinking about how we're going to propagate or populate, the system. And so when you're looking in that general direction, that you're loading things in, and that might be interesting, for the players to find.
Also, to add on top of that a bit, you mentioned that we're still developing one solar system. That should not be a problem, because even in this one solar system, we want places that have not been discovered. We want players to find their own things and find things that others have not found, and maybe be able to sell that information and the location of which resources, or I don't know, a drug lab that will offer you various goodies, and all these things. Maybe things discover whatever weapons dealer in the middle of nowhere that's selling something that we haven't seen before, and that information alone will be power. So we want people who explore to be the first guys that kind of discover these things, and what they do with it, whether they share it with their organization or they sell it to other people, it's up to them. And ideally, once it gets discovered by enough people, then it kind of becomes public knowledge and everyone can access it. But by that point, the money was made from that lucrative business.
And also, I mean, from my standpoint, just building the overall system and thinking about how huge this thing is right now. I mean, from tip to tip right now, I think we're talking about roughly 41 minutes in quantum, from tip to tip. And so, and then, if that took up your whole 1080 screen, then you're talking about the tip of the mouse. That might be 9 hours of just straight flight kind of thing. And so when I was working with Pete on just kind of overall solar system layout, and when we're talking about resources or where aggression or possible aggressive paths would be, how do we make sure that it's interesting when you're flying to these different things, not only just probability volumes, but also just, I think people are kind of seeing it right now with interdiction. Like it happens a lot right now, from my standpoint. But it's one of those things where I would like to have kind of a threshold where, okay, you haven't done this in a while, so we'll bring this up in front of you, or bring this up around you, so then you get a blip on your radar or something like that. Instead of actually pulling you completely out of quantum, you can go and investigate it or continue on your way.
Gotcha. You mentioned the quantum drive, 41 minutes from end to end. Somebody in the live chat was asking, will we see a return of blind quantum jumps right now? You used to be able to just pick a direction in quantum.
It's something we have talked about. The way that CR has always thought about it, though, was that you need to have a final destination before you do this kind of blind quantum. So in the future, I think it really depends on what it is for. If it's a blind quantum jump to basically get away from somebody, like you're being interdicted and you just want to get away, or if you're just trying to go out and explore. But the idea would be that if you're going out and exploring, you're just not going to go and just blink, to some place that you haven't seen. You would try to investigate it and try to make sure that the path is clear before you actually go.
Gotcha.
Right. Yeah. Also with the blind quantum jump, we can play with it in different ways. Where we go, we can reduce the speed that you would be traveling at. We can make it very risky, as in you might be hitting a huge rock if you blind jump, because the computer does not have the time to make the calculations for your jump. So you might be hitting anything on the way. So we'll look into this exactly, because it's something we need to figure out for the entire exploring thing. But yeah, we'll see.
A question from the Spectrum thread. It says, will AI crew require food, toilets, or sleep? And will they abandon us if we can't meet their needs? Can you provide a toilet for our AI?
Yes. The extent of it we'll have to see, but I know Chris likes this idea of having the AI having needs, and they will have to go to the toilet, and they will have to have showers, and they will have to have decent food on a ship, and their happiness is important. You're the captain. If you're not there just to fly a ship, that's a pilot's job. Your job is to keep everyone on the ship happy and in tip-top condition. So whether you hire someone that's a cook, which will probably provide you better food for everyone else, or just bring them frozen food that they can dump in a microwave. So that will matter. If they're not happy, they will do their job in a worse manner. They might, again, not take an order just because they don't like you anymore.
But even from the player standpoint, like CR wants, in layman's terms, it would just be buffs and debuffs. So if you haven't eaten, then maybe your reflexes are slower, or your morale is lower, or you bleed out quicker, those types of things. So yeah, it's something that when we talk about these, we would actually, part of it is just prototyping and playing it and seeing it. Does it actually read in the game? And so a lot of this, even before it gets to the players, we're playing it and thinking about, does this read? Does this come across as, I have low morale? And does this come across as I haven't eaten or I'm bleeding out faster because of this reason?
And also, interactions with other NPCs will be a problem if you haven't taken a shower in quite a while. So if you stink, they'll go like, just go away. I don't want to even see you. So we will have conditions in the behavior. Let's say if your cleanliness hygiene level is under a certain threshold, then you will not be able to talk to an NPC.
Are you being serious right now?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Shower citizen.
I'm not. We're not saying every 5 minutes. But.
No. Not in any way. But there will be conditions that you go through that will decrease your hygiene level. And after you go through various swamps and sweaty planets and whatever you go, when you enter, let's say, a nice clean station, you might find out that the vendor actually upped the prices by 10% for you because you're not exactly belonging there.
But we got to get it working and see if it comes across.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's like Pigpen and you're seeing dust all the time in front of you or something like that. But
small particle flies flying around.
Yeah, as long as you're seeing something from a player standpoint and it reads, then we'll put it in.
I'm so glad you mentioned Pigpen. That's exactly what I've been picturing in my head. That's why I'm laughing, because I'm picturing running around like Pigpen in the Peanuts.
Yeah.
All right. Back to mining. Will heavy mining eventually deplete a node completely? What do we do to stop somebody from just posting up somewhere and just staying on that forever and ever and ever?
So yes, it will deplete it completely.
Yes,
we want that. We want the nodes to get depleted or even destroyed if you're not mining them accordingly. They will become harder and harder to mine the lower the quantity of material inside is, and they will then get the population of mineable objects will get replenished over time.
Okay. And we'll have to figure out how that happens as well.
Yes,
that'll be one of the things that we try to work out, and like tier 0, tier 1 is how do these things get replenished.
Gotcha. Another question about the griefing related to mining. What if I show up and want to mine something and somebody else is already there? Does the law protect them if they're there first? Can I get rid of them and move in?
Yeah. I mean, this goes back to like some of the stuff that we talked about regarding like land service and all of that. At least in the short term, no. It won't matter. But in the future, like if somebody actually owns that property, then yeah, it would matter.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So initially, that will not be the case, as for now we'll be finding various mineable rocks on the surfaces of planets, and it'll be not necessarily a first come first serve, but whoever comes there can extract at the same time. It's going to be interesting with multiple players trying to pump a lot of power into the same rock and making sure they don't go overboard. So that creates automatically interesting gameplay where you might have certain deposits that require more people to pump power into them in order to extract anything, because one ship might not reach the required power level, and then you need multiple people. But if you You might be that just like two people come along, they don't know each other, and they found the same rock, and they might just peacefully each extract their share out of it and then go on their way.
Okay. And that's the great thing about our model is, we'll put tier 0 out there and we'll try some things, and then we'll get feedback, and then we'll try other things, and then we'll get feedback, and then we'll try other things. So even whatever the first iteration of this is won't necessarily be, where we end up. This process that we have where we're running a live environment in the middle of our game development means we can try things and see how they work. We don't have to figure everything out ahead of time. And that's cool. All right. We're almost done here, guys. Thanks for hanging in there, Dan. Here's a question from the live chat. When can we expect to be able to open panels where avionics, life support, and shields are placed so we can repair and replace them? So yeah, we showed on ATV today or yesterday, in the Terrapin, all the different panels with all the different components and whatnot, and a lot of the comments were like, I really want to be able to pull components out and put them in and replace them and stuff like that.
So from a ship standpoint, we have them there, and we have them placed. Now, part of it with the smaller ships is basically there's load and draw issues. So that's one of the things that we're working through is basically when you open a thing and then it pops out and then you can actually go and replace that part or switch it out, or even have like fuses or sub items within those things that you can go and switch out. It's something that John Crew prototyped a while ago and showed it working on a Gladius as well as working on a Connie. I want it as soon as possible, honestly, just because then there's the inherent gameplay of switching those things out, having it break, having it feel like the Millennium Falcon, that you're flying around and something breaks and somebody's got to go back and fix that, while you're trying to hold off people. Like that's the type of feeling that we want to go for. It's just based off of other technical issues that we're working through, or we've got other higher priorities like working on scanning, and working through a lot of bugs that our vehicle feature team is focused on.
Gotcha. What are our thoughts about an autopilot function? This comes up every once in a while over the years. People want to know if they can. You mentioned it would take 41 minutes to cross just the Stanton system. I mean, what do we think about the idea of just setting a destination, knowing it's going to take 30 minutes, and hitting autopilot, and then going and making a sandwich?
Well, I assume if you're just quantuming, then fair enough. You can get up and go play chess in the background, kind of thing. But if something happens, then you're scrambling. As far as just pure autopilot, it's not something I've heard Chris ever talk about, besides having an AI actually do it. But I mean, I don't want to poo-poo it. It'll just be, until I actually hear it from my boss's mouth, then I'm not planning for it.
Even if we do this at some point, the capabilities of the autopilot will have to be greatly reduced to what a player will ever be able to do. So a player will be a lot more efficient, faster to get there. If we ever do this, we'll have to, even if it's an NPC doing it, unless it's a very well-trained NPC that's flying your ship, it'll be slower than what the player can do.
Unless we can get the autopilot from airplane.
Auto. Dude, if you give me a ship flare item, subscriber flare item, auto. Okay, I've got to talk to Rob McKinnon and our entire flare team, because now I got to try to push through auto. And I can say it came from Todd Papy, so it'll have more weight. Here's a question from the live chat. Will the game automatically tell us if a character is a player or an NPC, or will we be indistinguishable?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I think first you'll need to see them and be able to know who they are, because if I see a ship in the distance and I don't manage to scan it, I don't know who that person is, which other persons might be on board. If I actually scan and find out, then I'll be able, if I see the name, I think that's the point. When we see the name, we should be able to know who that person is, whether it's an NPC or a player. But in most cases, you might not see a name. If a dude is hiding behind a rock and you kind of see something there, until you actually get to find out what he is, what ship he's flying, you won't be able to tell.
Well, and I think so much of that would go regarding like naming system. Like if you have, for example, I see some of the names on Spectrum, it would be like Elite, Exile Knight, and for us to do Exile Knight, _111, like, there's going to be some things that we do from a name standpoint that just, it doesn't fit fiction, but we allow players to do it just because that's their handle that they want to create.
One thing that will also help is the affiliation. If you see the organization, the faction that they're part of, you will kind of know, because the NPC ones will be NPC only. So,
gotcha. It sounds like there will be ways to figure it out, but it won't necessarily be something we explicitly spell out for people.
No, and I think players, for the most part, move a lot more erratic.
What?
Like running everywhere, jumping, doing all these kind of random things. So I'm assuming that will be the first thing that will.
Now I want an AI skill for bunny hopping.
Jumps around.
Yeah. For bunny hopping and everything, just to really blur the lines. All right, we are just about done, guys. Here's a question that comes up every once in a while. We were talking about those components and the subsystems. We've talked a little bit in the past about the ability to modify those components themselves, to tweak, to tune them, basically. What are our thoughts about the ability to tune subsystems and everything, and maybe get a little more performance out of the stock nature of them?
We have them. We have it planned. In fact, we've had meetings regarding how we're going to build out the insides of these, just because we do have that planned. I looked at some of the JIRAs yesterday, and looked at priorities for those things. So, but I'm not going to put it up above like scanning or other key features that we need for S42 to get that thing singing. Just because from a player standpoint, you're not going to be switching out those subsystems.
Yeah, I think questions like that come from, I see a lot of people who envision a career for themselves, buying components and tuning them and then selling them pre-tuned to other players.
Yeah, but I mean, even then, at least right now, from what we've talked about with some of the item tuning and stuff, right now we're only talking about 5 to 10% difference. But we've talked about weapons and how weapons can be upgraded, and I can see how we would do it from like a cooler standpoint or avionics standpoint or a power plant standpoint. I can see how we can take those numbers and we can tune them, and we can kind of have similar systems for the weapons as well as for the sub items. It would just be building that system. We have something planned for weapons, so I'll make note and we'll look at it from a system standpoint as well.
You said only 5 to 10%. It's like the min-maxers out there, Todd, Papy. If they can get 0.9% out of something, you can bet they'll pay a premium to get 0.9%.
And I can understand, 0.9% of, like, let's say a capital ship item, that might be a hell of a lot.
But even 0.9% on a smaller ship, you're talking 0.9% for this item, then 0.9 for this item, and they keep adding up, and they become more and more powerful. So I can understand why the players really want to have this. Yeah, it's a cool thing, but yes.
Well, he's a min-maxer.
He got a min-max.
Exactly. Yeah.
He is.
Yeah, all those
I am not a min-maxer. I just want a thing that looks cool, that I like to look at.
Hey, I want that too.
All right, guys, that's it. You made it.
Yay!
So thanks for appearing on the show. Dan, thank you for coming in under the weather and agreeing to appear on the show this week. And Todd, of course, thank you again so much for subbing in and helping Dan out.
No worries. He's got his sweet Barry White voice going.
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry guys, my voice is dead.
I will ask you one last question from the live chat that I thought would be appropriate. What's one of the things that you're working on right now that excites you the most?
Mining.
And that is what he's specifically working on right now.
Yes, this is the one thing that really no, it's a cool thing, and it's going to be the backbone of the economy, because this is where resources come from, and a lot of things will get built on top of mining. We're talking mining, then refining, then using those components to build other things, to research, to do science. There's so much stuff that stems from this gathering of resources. And again, not just mining, salvaging, and all this. So all these gathering of resources is going to bring up so much gameplay into the game. So it's going to be so cool.
All right.
But he's specifically working on mining.
Yes,
he's the product owner for it.
Other people
And then
other stuff.
and then we've got salvaging being worked on out of LA, Austin, as well as the UK. And so for me, I get to basically oversee those with Tony, and I'm excited about those.
Cool. All right, guys, thank you so much. We'll let you go. Folks watching, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with the wrap-up. We'll see you in a bit.